Okay, and welcome to this demo of EasyDodge Lite. EasyDodge is a custom Photoshop panel that will allow you to selectively darken or burn and lighten or dodge certain parts of your image in order to better guide the viewer's eye through the picture. The panel exists in two forms: the full panel, discussed in another video, and a light version, which I'll talk about in this video. The light panel is actually a bonus that comes with the Craft and Vision ebook on dodging and burning. After installation, which is explained in the PDF that accompanies the panel, you will find EasyDodge Lite under Photoshop's Window Extensions menu, and you just choose it from there. EasyDodge is actually a custom panel made in Adobe Configurator with buttons that will trigger corresponding Photoshop actions. And of course, the action set is also in the download. Now, by far the most interesting part of EasyDodge is this one here, dodging and burning with selections. The power of EasyDodge lies in the fact that it lets you move quickly, dodging and burning larger parts of your image without really having to brush the effect on. You just make a rough selection and then you feather that selection with a certain feather amount and either lighten or darken it. EasyDodge works on color as well as on black and white images. Now, take for example this man's face. Suppose I want to lighten it. I will just use the lasso tool to make a very rough selection, and I'm using a Wacom tablet here, but I probably could even pull this off with a mouse. Just make a really rough selection of the face. You see, it's a matter of seconds. And I will choose then the most appropriate of the four buttons over here, as I want to lighten the selection. And these buttons all do the same thing. They make a curves adjustment layer that lightens the selection by a certain amount, and the amount is the same. The only difference lies in the amount of feathering that will be applied to this selection. As a general rule of thumb, the larger your selection is, the larger you'll want your feather value to be, so that the edited and the unedited parts of the image blend in with each other more easily. So in this case, I just hit the Lighten to 50 pixels button, and you see that this will brighten my selection. And you can't tell the borders of the selection because of the feathering effect with 250 pixels. Okay. Now I find this to be a little bit too bright, and as everything is on its own layer, I could tweak the opacity over here and set it to whatever amount I want, but just in order to allow you to move quicker, I've included a preset button that when you hit it, just puts the opacity of the selected layer to 50%. Yeah? So quick access, and it really allows you to focus just on the panel and on the image at hand. That's looking better already. Now I also want to lighten his eyes even more than the rest of the face. So what I will do is, again, using the lasso that's still selected, I will make a very rough selection of the camera left eye, hold down the shift key, make a selection of the camera right eye, and in this case, of course, I won't use the Lighten to 50 pixels button because that's way too much of a feather compared to the size of my selection. In this case, I'll probably use the Lighten 75 pixels or even 25 pixels button. So let's try the 75 pixels, and you see it seamlessly lightens the eyes. Now, suppose I don't find that to be enough. Just as I have a 50% button, I have a duplicate effect button, which will effectively duplicate the last effect. And as you can see here, this has duplicated in fact the previous adjustment layer. Now, suppose I find this to be too much, I can hit the Fade 50% button, which will translate into an effective lightening by 1.5 times my original amount. Now, if you added an adjustment and you decide you don't like it, you can always hit the Delete Active Layer button, which will, as the name implies, delete the last added adjustment layer, or any other selected layer for that matter, so watch out. Now, the darken buttons, of course, work the same way. Suppose I want to darken the jacket a little bit more. Again, I make a rough selection of the jacket, hold down the Shift key to select the camera right part, and then as it's a fairly large selection, I will hit the Darken 250 pixels button. Again, maybe a little bit too much, so Fade 50% to make it blend in a little bit better. Now suppose I want to add a vignette. Well, I can quickly draw selection, and I will make sure that my selection doesn't cover the hair too much because that's already dark enough by itself. Something like this over here. So I made a really loose selection, and what I can do now is hit the Invert Selection button and then again hit the Darken 250 pixels button. And now I have made kind of a custom vignette, but that looks a little bit less polished and a little bit less artificial sometimes than the post-crop vignette in Camera Raw or Lightroom can do. Now that's about it for the global enhancements. What I will do now is quickly use the Dodge and Burn single layer over here option, which will allow me to paint with more precision on certain areas. Suppose I want to accentuate the eyes a little bit and want to make them stand out a little bit more. This is something I can't do with the really rough selections. So what this button has done, it has added a dodge and burn paint layer as explained in the ebook, which will now allow me to paint with black or white at an opacity of 50%, for example, and select very precisely dodge or burn certain parts. So in this case I want to lighten the iris of the eyes a little bit more, so I will hit the X key to exchange my foreground color to white, and I will just paint with white in this area over here. Yeah, and the same of course for the other eye. And the effect is subtle, yet if you turn it off, you see it's there. So it's just a little tweak to make portrait even strong. And it's something that's done a lot in portrait photography. So there you have it, a quick walkthrough of EasyDodgeLite, the bonus panel that comes with the Craft and Vision ebook on dodging and burning.